Russia is now being blamed in all crimes without any proof. Let's just take, for example, the attack on the humanitarian aid convoy. We know who hit it. It was one of the terror organizations on the ground. And we clearly know that the Americans are aware of this as well. But they prefer blaming Russia without proof. That's clearly not what can help the situation. This manner of acting at an international level is called pressuring and blackmailing. But with Russia, that has never worked and never will work.
Washington has threatened to impose costs on Russia outside the UN over the Syrian conflict. It may mark the starkest warning so far from America, which has been ramping up anti-Russian rhetoric in recent weeks, moving swiftly from criticism to direct threats.
I listened to my colleague from Russia, and I sort of felt a little bit like we're sort of in a parallel universe here.
What Russia is sponsoring and doing is not counterterrorism, it is barbarism.
In this case, I wouldn't rule out multilateral efforts outside of the UN to impose costs on Syria or Russia or others with regard to the situation inside of Syria.
However, just a month ago, US-Russia talks on the Syrian peace process seemed warm and friendly. RT's Caleb Mopan takes us through how it all changed.
Remember when the United States and Russia were keen on sharing their friendship with the world?
Where's the vodka?
Pizza from the American delegation. This is from the Russians.
Well, it's certainly not like that these days.
Extremist groups will continue to exploit the vacuums that are there in Syria to expand their operations, which will include, no question, attacks against Russian interests, perhaps even Russian cities. And Russia will continue to send troops home in body bags.
So how did it get this bad? Well, there are key factors that are being left out as the hateful words and threats get louder. Firstly, the U.S. broke the ceasefire when it killed 60 Syrian army soldiers who were on the front lines battling against ISIL.
Yes, the coalition did hit people on Saturday. We did. A terrible accident.
Secondly, the United States promised to separate the terrorists of al-Nusra from the so-called moderate rebels that they were supporting. Yet months and months later, the U.S.-backed fighters are still fighting side by side the terrorists and extremists.
And it was our challenge, coming to the table, agreeing in Geneva. Our challenge was to try as best we can to reach out to the moderate opposition and make clear to them that they needed to in order for this thing to work.
It's like all the talk of peace has been forgotten.
The next shock group here is the fighting against the regional peer military powers. These are existential for us and our allies. The threat for this type of a fight is a nation state with modern capabilities, aggressive behavior, and engaging in militarized competition. So who would you pick for that one? I think it would be Russia.
I want to be clear to those who wish to do us harm. We'll stop you, and we will beat you harder than you've ever been beaten before.
But if you listen to the words of U.S. officials, it's as if somehow Russia is the one who's being aggressive.
The lunatic war hawks have taken over in Langley, in the Pentagon, and also in the White House. The spokesperson there talking about costs and Russian cities being hit, Russian soldiers coming home in body bags. That to me sounds like an indirect order to terrorists to strike wherever they want to. The thing is, the Battle of Aleppo is the crux of this whole war. When Aleppo is liberated, that is it. Americans know that the game is up. It doesn't matter however much arms and munitions and resupplying they can do to their proxy armies. They're running out of space to fight, and this is why the sort of ratcheting it up of the war of words, I suppose.
In 2015, ISIL was getting more and more powerful, and Russia urged the people of the world to unite against them. After Moscow's bombing campaign, their previously vast territory has diminished. This has awakened previously dormant arguments.
Well, let's remember, one of the things that that people in Washington have repeatedly attacked Russia for is they say, oh, you're not attacking Daesh, you're not attacking Islamic State, you're hitting the legitimate opposition. From Russia's point of view, and certainly from the Syrian government's point of view, they're all al-Qaeda, they're all terrorists, they all have the same ideology. Why should Daesh be singled out?
So now, instead of pizza, war is very much on the menu. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
As Caleb just reported, the territory held by Islamic State has diminished drastically since 2014. Back then, the group seemed powerful enough to build its own state, with stories of an autonomous government and currency hitting the headlines. But now media reports highlight ISIL's decline. Let's take a little look at the map we're going to show you here. Here we see just how much territory Islamic State has lost in 2 years. The fight against terror groups like ISIL and the future of the Syrian conflict is discussed in the latest edition of Politicking.
Everybody agrees on ISIS, but nobody else can agree on anything else, and that's the huge problem now. It becomes so complex. Russia argues and Putin argues that the Free Syrian Army, which America argues is actually rebel forces unaffiliated to terrorists, Russia says they're also terrorists. This is a crucial time. It was looking like only a few weeks ago there was even the possibility of Russia and the U.S. working on joint military operations out of Jordan to go after ISIS in the eastern areas of Syria.
But I want to be clear. I want to be unambiguous. I want to be clear to those who try to oppose the United States. I want to be clear to those who wish to do us harm. I want to be clear to those around the world who want to destroy our way of life and that of our allies and friends. The United States military, despite all our challenges, despite our op-tempo, despite everything we've been doing, will stop you and we will beat you harder than you've ever been beaten before. Make no mistake about that. And the United States Army
It's now Hillary Clinton who wants to start an air war with Russia over Syria by calling for a no-fly zone. We have 2,000 nuclear missiles on hair-trigger alert, and Mikhail Gorbachev, the former premier of the Soviet Union, is saying we are closer to a nuclear war than we have ever been. Under Hillary Clinton, we could slide into nuclear war very quickly from her declared policy in Syria. So I won't sleep well at night if Donald Trump is elected, but I sure won't sleep well at night if Hillary Clinton is elected. Fortunately, we have another choice other than these two candidates who are both promoting lethal policies. But on the issue of war, and nuclear weapons and the potential for nuclear war. It's actually Hillary's policies, which are much scarier than Donald Trump, who does not want to go to war with Russia. He wants to seek modes of working together, which is the root that...
Russia is now being blamed in all crimes without any proof. Let's just take, for example, the attack on the humanitarian aid convoy. We know who hit it. It was one of the terror organizations on the ground. And we clearly know that the Americans are aware of this as well. But they prefer blaming Russia without proof. That's clearly not what can help the situation. This manner of acting at an international level is called pressuring and blackmailing. But with Russia, that has never worked and never will work.